Okay, so even though there's zero chance of having a normal day today because of Rick's passing and because it's the week of Christmas and because I'm about to get interrupted in about 3 seconds to move my shit out of here and because those are pretty much all the reasons. But nonetheless, I'm going to pretend as though those things aren't true and attempt to do what I would normally do on any other day, or when I'm in news mode, what I would normally do on any other day. I'm still trying to clear the news. And every other time I've ever tried to clear the news, it turns into a multi-month project. And then eventually it's not even I don't ever finish. I never get to the point where I have caught up with all the news for that day. I just stop caring. Just after enough days in a row of doing nothing but reading the news all day, I just stop giving a fuck and I stop wanting to read the news, and then I actually do some work. Let's read some news. I'm curious, what is going on in Venezuela? I would really like to know what is going on. In Germany, everyone is a defense manufacturer now. I'm curious as to what that means. Not curious enough to read it, though. Russian general killed in Moscow car bombing. Interesting. Another oil tanker seized. Tell me what's going on. So the Veterans Affairs doctors can no longer perform abortions. Okay. If you want to have an abortion, you can do that, but it's not going to be paid for by the federal government. I think that's fair enough. There is the interruption I was expecting. I mean, it's not really an interruption when you're expecting it, is it? Send utopian fuck the Americas. No single advantage. Just a fun memory. So why throw it away? Bring it to us now. Let it go away. There's more space. Jesus, stop making it more complicated than it needs to be. Oh. My mom is such a fucking stupid bitch, honestly. She's so fucking dumb. I spent the whole night last night packing up my daughter's stuff, and she told me, put it all in garbage bags, and she'll come here and pick it up. So I put all of her stuff in garbage bags. I went through it. I decided what to throw away and what to keep, although I'm sure there's a bunch more stuff that my daughter's going to end up saying, I didn't really want this. I'm going to throw it away. But, and then I get out there, I put in like 1/3 of the stuff, and she's like, that's enough. That's all I want. I'm not taking any more. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Why are you making this complicated? Let me get the stuff into the car and you drive away. You do with it what you fucking want. But you're the one who told me to pack the stuff up like this. And just, oh my God, fucking idiot. So fucking stupid. I swear to God. Anything that she can ruin, she will ruin. Europe's Taiwan dilemma. What day is it? 22nd? We still have 23rd and 24th in this bitch. Oh, wow. Get me out of here. Iran is sending ships to South Africa. What the fuck? PLA activities around Taiwan. I've had this popcorn kernel shell stuck in my tooth for like 3 weeks now. I can't get it out. Sweden is going to start testing drones before sending them to Ukraine. Why the US military shouldn't organize around AI yet? I think I know the answer to that question. Let's see if we can get a little synopsis there. Did I click on the wrong one? What the fuck? Yeah, I did. Where did the one about AI go? Must be the next one. What the hell happened to the one about AI? Oh my god. There we go. Okay, I don't think we really got anything. Counteroffensive irregular warfare, Pakistan's Army Rocket Force, California's new law outlawing criticism of Israel. What? Okay, that's more than 1 day's worth. Let's check the economic news. What's crazy is when people die, like you think about them constantly for a while, and then you start being like, did I think about this person constantly before? Was I always thinking about them this much? Because like there's not a single second that goes by that I don't think about Rick at this moment. It's like, but it doesn't feel like it's a change. It's like, wait, but I just always been thinking about Rick constantly? I kind of feel like the answer is yes. Like it's like your limbic system is like just a mixture of all the people that you've ever known in your entire life. Especially and then like the ones you've been around more recently. And like it's like part of what your brain is doing as you process your life, your day. Look at these fucking fake ass clouds. That's bullshit. These fake cloud, fake fuckers. It was totally blue skies earlier, and then I saw one little fake cloud stream come being sprayed out of a drone, and now the whole sky is gray. Anyways, so yeah, I think like as you go through life, you're processing your life, and like your emotional part of your brain, it's sort of like filtering every single thing that happens through, in a way, like you have a filter for everybody you've ever met in your whole life. I don't know what I mean by a filter, like how they would react to it or something. And then like when somebody dies, then like you're still doing exactly what you were doing before, but now every time like the filter gets to them, it like takes a special note. It's like, oh, this person is no longer with us. And so it feels like you're thinking about them constantly. And you're like, did I always think about them this much? Should have thought about it more when they were alive and they wouldn't be dead. I don't think that's the case in this one. Maybe for somebody, not for me though. Although Rick did want to hang out with me more, and I didn't really hang out with him. He did want to be better friends with me. And the reason I did not or could not do that was that he wanted me to like bring things to his house, like beer or food. And I didn't have any money. I didn't have any money to do anything. And I needed to spend my time working on my business. And he would be like, what business? Ha ha ha. Get a real job. Ha ha ha. Which is, I don't blame him for that, because that's a lot of people have that attitude. And it's not their job to validate my business. It's my job to validate that by getting clients. Clients paying me money is the ultimate validation, the only validation that matters. And I haven't done that actually. So I can't get this fucking popcorn kernel out of my fucking molar. Oh, okay. Zero sum mindset will get you nowhere. Thanks for letting me know about that. Three Russian officers have been assassinated this year. Huh? Interesting. Who's doing that? Is that Ukraine? The old oil case behind Trump's Venezuela threats. Trump offered no details about how such a blockade would be enforced or what legal authority it would operate under. Yeah, it was very confusing. I'm very confused about what's going on in Venezuela. Every day that goes by, I think it's going to get clarified, and it still hasn't. Improving indoor air quality might save your life. All right, get me out of this bitch. All right, and that's it.
You know what? You know when you really like somebody and you hate them at the same time.
Yeah.
Hate, love, hate.
Okay. Let's check out some Minnesota news before we move along to FeedSpot. Vitamin D could prevent 30,000 cancer deaths per year in Germany alone. Really? How America's government won back control over its Bolivian colony and tries now to do the same thing as its former Venezuelan colony. Where is our Bolivian in Bolivia? is our colony in Bolivia. Metabolic health and inflammation. Influence cancer risk. See, it happened again. I thought about Rick. And I'm like, wait, would I normally have thought about Rick? Because the thought wasn't about him dying. It was just like cancer or whatever. It was like inflammation, cancer. And then it was like, oh, like, it's like my brain was like, went through like a list of like, who have I talked about these topics with, you know? And Rick was on the list. And then it's just like, and then it's like hijacked the whole thought process gets hijacked by the way, he's dead. He passed away. Dave Chappelle slams Bill Maher and Israel in defense of Saudi Arabia comedy show. Fuck that guy. Anybody who says that like comedians sold out, that there's shut the fuck up. That's the dumbest. You're so fucking stupid. If you ever say that a comedian sold out in any way whatsoever, what are you talking about? Or a musician. Like fuck you. Like that's the point, is to make money. That's the point. If you think there's a different point, that there's some like fucking loyalty to the art form or something, then you're an idiot and you should die. Or, you know, not that bad. You shouldn't die. Sorry. Whoops. You're fucking stupid, though. You're fucking stupid. If you think there is such a thing as selling out, if you ever use the word selling out, you're fucking stupid. You know why? Because the people that I know that are doing music or doing comedy, they're fucking poor. They are broke. They're homeless. So, like, fucking yes, make money, survive. That's not, there's nothing, it's literally, there's nothing wrong with being good at what you do and getting paid for doing what you do. Even if what you're doing is like making commercials. So a lot of comedians, oh, I'm a pure stand-up, I'm a real stand-up. Like, go do fucking commercials and get paid something. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing shameful about that. In fact, there is something wrong, and there's something shameful with being a homeless piece of shit. Believe me, I know something about that. And I'm not saying homeless people are pieces of shit. That's not my point here. Okay, back to Minnesota. And the sun is down. Trump says that Mike Lindell deserves to be Minnesota governor. God, that'd be awesome. I would love that so much. I might have to move back here just for that. Just for that. Just for the trolling opportunities. A black family moved into segregated South Minneapolis. Then the terror began. 4600 Columbus Avenue South in Minneapolis was a set of racial violence directed at the Lees. I've heard all about this so many times. Damn, that's wild. Wow, that house needed a paint job so bad. Oh, that's because of the vandalization of it. They have a little memorial. That's probably why. I've probably been down there a lot. That is my neck of the woods. Trump's order on artificial intelligence is a potential disaster. I don't think we can trust Minnesota Post to give us any real information ever. So, wouldn't put a lot as the time of the piece was submitted 29 years. Okay. It's time to break up big tech. This is about how it has to do whatever. Fuck it. Despite successful drug bust, pipeline of meth and fentanyl continues in Minnesota. Today in Minnesota fraud. As we roll into Christmas week, the headlines keep coming in. Fox News: Minnesota welfare fraud may exceed $9 billion. Okay, but that's the only headline. You only have one headline from 5 different sources. So the headlines don't continue to roll in. You have one headline. ICE agent fires shots. I didn't know ICE was allowed to shoot. Oh, he did. He was struck by a vehicle, so he was under attack. So it was a self-defense thing. Zoshan will never talk to anybody ever again unless they are from Taiwan and they are working on my business. Almost there. Or myself. I will talk to myself. I like talking to myself. I do it all the time. I'm going to continue doing it all the time until the day that I die. Talking to myself means I don't have to talk to other people. I hate talking to other people because after you talk with them for a little while, you realize they're very stupid. Okay, what was I trying to look at? This Minnesota economic news. AI chatbots are reshaping political persuasion. An AI chatbot has the power to persuade you to support a specific candidate. I believe that. I 100% believe that. But they have these weird restrictions on like what you can do with an AI chatbot, and like a campaign isn't allowed to use OpenAI's API to create like a chatbot for their campaign. Otherwise, I would have done that right away. That would have been my first move in this bitch. All right. Let's check on X real quick. Do we have free McDonald's today? Wait, what? Who's this guy?
Hell no. Hey, fuck no. Fuck no.
Okay. Let me see here. What? They got Sichuan sauce, bro? No, they don't have Sichuan sauce. I got excited for no reason. Yeah. En estos momentos, he knows it. Oh, the Vikings didn't give me a free Big Mac, you fucking assholes. Fuck the Vikings. But I do have 2,000. I have 2,000 rewards points. I have to use them all. I don't think I can use my McDonald's rewards points in Taiwan. Maybe I can, though. Is there? Let's find out. Y no sé si tu ojos se avirijaron de mí. Y me pregunta qué habría pasado si estuviésemos juntos. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 McDonald's in Hualien. Wonder if I can try to order from them on the McDonald's app. Actually, I just don't care. This is a waste of time. Fuck this. We will find out when we're there. Cute. Okay. So what was I doing again? Looking at McDonald's in Hualien. Oh yeah, I was gonna see whether or not there's McDonald's. I was looking at I am however, every time I try to pull up the news on I can't. See what happens? See what fucking happens? And then there's this for you, which is like, all right. All right, I'm not seeing any fucking news. Greenland, Zimbabwe, Yale, Barry Manilow. Yeah, fuck all this. Okay. What are we doing here? We're going to look through YouTube now. That's the plan. Because we're trying to clear out the news. So English videos about China. Oh yeah, but we'll keep X going because I might want to just pick up the thread where I left it off. Can't break the thread until it's clear. All right. So today, in the world of Chinese English language videos, we have the golden age of the world's factory is over. Devastation in China. Okay, I'm gonna skip that. I'm good. Yeah, we'll go to another a video about tofu construction in China. Debt wave explodes in China. Bosses flee massive protests. Xiaomi faces biggest crisis ever. Used car market crashes. China's huge crackdown on e-bikes. The first female umpire in Taiwan. Who cares? Taipei goes back to routine after random stabbing attack. Maybe it was not so random, but I'm glad to see everything's back to normal because I was thinking, man, is everything going to be back to normal by the time I'm there? I think it will be. Oh, who is this? Huang Jie. I think I know of her already. She is hot. She is smoking hot. I'm pretty sure like her mom was a model and a famous person. And then she became a politician and she's just been hot since day one. She's still hot. It's just like, wait, you're a member of Congress? Why Japan builds the most expensive F-16 ever? A cup of tea in the storm. Taidong. I'm gonna save that, but that's whatever. That's just for my own personal usage. That's not for. Oh, it's not actually news. Did China just make a massive mistake? Chinese economy, consumer stocks, Japan tension, strategic mistake, risky bond bet. China of Wang Ke. Okay. China's rural protests explode 70% amid brutal economic slump. China cloned ASML's EUV machine with stolen tech. I'm going to save that one because I think that's the one that Balding was talking about the other day. And I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. So hopefully that will clarify. But I don't feel a strong, urgent need to read it or to watch it right at this moment. Taiwan, hi, Anshan Ma. Okay, so that's the Prazi guy. I'll save that as well because I didn't want to watch his 2-hour live stream, but I'll watch 9 minutes on 2x speed, so 4.5 minutes. Global opinion collapses for the United States and Israel. Whatever. Who fucking cares? You guys are stupid. KMT legislators visit China. That's fucking garbage right there. KMT sues justices. Woman arrested after false bomb threat on Taiwan high-speed train. Luckily, all the news I'm interested in right now is Taiwan related, which is good. That's the state of mind I want to be in, you know? Why she silenced Liu Yazhou and his warning on Taiwan.
Elite.
Whoopsies. I was going to skip over it, but then the warning on Taiwan got me. Once again, all you have to do is mention Taiwan, and you got my attention. You know what? Okay, I'm going to watch that one right now. That one I will prioritize. Let's go.
So now let's talk about General Liu Yazhou. He's one of the PLA's most influential strategists. He married into the revolutionary elite and was the son-in-law of former PRC president Li Xiannian. So under the protection of party elders' networks, he rose quickly. He became an Air Force Major General in 1996, a Lieutenant General in 2003, and a full General in 2012. And by the way, he studied English in college. So for 7 years, he served as political commissar of the PLA's National Defense University, the highest military educational institution in China. And that matters because the National Defense University is not just a school, it is the pipeline that produces China's future senior commanders. Many of today's top officers passed through its halls. Many were General Liu Yazhou's students and subordinates. So when Liu fell, it wasn't just one man being removed. It was an entire network being silenced. In 2017, before the age of 65, Liu was forced into early retirement. Unlike normal practice, he was not given an honorary position in the National People's Congress or the CPPCC. And then at the end of 2021, reports emerged that Liu was under investigation for corruption. However, Hong Kong media outlet called Mingbao reported that his wife was safe and unaffected. And then in March 2024, information surfaced that General Liu had been sentenced to life imprisonment. It was shocking. It was like a bombshell at the time. However, to this day, there has been no official announcement. It's been more than 18 months. There has been no official announcement about his sentencing. He was not expelled from the party. He was not stripped of military status. That alone makes his case one of the most bizarre major cases in the PLA history. Why was General Liu perceived to be so dangerous? Because he challenged Xi Jinping on Taiwan. He openly argued that Xi Jinping lacked the ability to command the Taiwan War. He said bluntly that Xi Jinping does not possess the qualities of a supreme commander. And long before Xi Jinping came to power, Liu had already laid out his thinking on the war in the Taiwan Strait. He wrote an essay around 2001. That's almost like 25 years ago. And it's called A Review of the Battle of Kinmen Island. He analyzed the PLA's failed 1949 assault on Kinmen and dissected the causes of defeat and emphasized one lesson above all. That is, never fight an unprepared war. That's his argument. And now, even after censorship and editing, his essay circulated widely within the PLA. Even in the decade before Xi Jinping took power, it caused enormous internal shock. In that essay, he warned, he said, in any future operation against Taiwan, we must be fully prepared for a third force to intervene suddenly. That third force being Japan, but primarily it will be the United States. Now, fast forward to today. We know that Japan's new prime minister has openly stated that the Taiwan contingency is a Japan contingency, and Beijing reacted furiously, and the provocation has been escalated, has not stopped. 25 years later, many of the things that General Liu wrote in that essay was right. He also wrote, he said, I can state with certainty, if a Taiwan Strait war breaks out, the United States will definitely intervene. He even predicted the U.S. strategy. He said, the U.S. allows China to land more than 200,000 troops, then suddenly intervenes to seize air and sea superiority, block the Taiwan Strait, and join Taiwanese forces to annihilate PLA units that have lost ammunition and supply. This would deliver a massive political blow to China and shatter the fighting will of PLA forces on the mainland. This week, a Chinese political commentator, his name is Du Zhen, wrote a piece about General Liu Yazhou in the Taiwanese media called Up Media. So here's what he said. In China's grand strategy for the next 20 years, Liu argued that resolving Taiwan issue or unification issue required winning the hearts and minds of the Taiwanese people. It involves political reform on the mainland, fixing governance in Hong Kong, and integration rather than conquest. None of what he wrote was acceptable to Xi Jinping. So in early 2023, reports emerged that the military issued internal orders to purge all harmful Liu Yazhou content, his books, essays, speeches, inscriptions, and manuscripts. So if you search Liu Yazhou's books today on Chinese internet, you're not going to find any. Someone told Mr. Du that his essay, A Review of the Kinmen Battle, was labeled by Xi Jinping as poisonous weeds, accusing Liu of corrupting military morale. Here's why morale is the real fear, because in that essay, he talked about history. He wrote that during the Kinmen Battle, more than 4,000 PLA soldiers were captured, and about 3,000 were repatriated to the mainland in 1952. Instead of being welcomed home, they were expelled from the party and the military, sent back to farm, imprisoned. Some were even labeled as traitors. During the Cultural Revolution, they were persecuted again. So these people, these former PLA soldiers, put it themselves. This is how they described themselves. They said, 3 days of bitter fighting in Taiwan or in Kinmen, 30 years of suffering in China. Now think about this. If active duty soldiers fully absorb these facts, morale would collapse overnight. And that is why General Liu Yazhou is so feared as a result of his reflection on the failure of the Kingman battle. Look at today, right? Earlier in the month in Shanghai, I showed you a video showing active duty troops were deployed to suppress protests by retired veterans and their families over housing benefits in Shanghai. I believe it was this Tuesday's program. Now let that sink in. Active duty soldiers were ordered to crack down on veterans. And that was not an isolated case. On September 3rd and 8th, right after the military parade in Beijing, retired senior officers in Yunnan staged sit-ins demanding promised resettlement jobs. Those promises were not kept. And then dozens of veterans from the Sino-Vietnamese War protested after their monthly subsidy, just 800 yuan, was withheld. It's not a lot of money, not delayed, they were withheld. And last year, the PLA's East Sea Fleet forcibly reclaimed welfare housing from demobilized soldiers in Shanghai. Veterans responded by hanging protest banners inside the naval compound itself. So this is the core problem facing the PLA today. An army cannot maintain morale when veterans are beaten, benefits are clawed back, promises are broken, and soldiers are ordered to suppress their own predecessors and their commanders are being killed, right? So if there's one thing that the CCP has completely wiped out in China, it's trust. And once soldiers stop bleeding, once they realize they can be discarded just like the veterans and their commanders, the army doesn't need to lose a war to break. And that's the real danger facing this PLA today.
Police in southern Taiwan have arrested a woman for falsely reporting a bomb on a high-speed rail train. Authorities say they received a report on Sunday that a train traveling from Tainan to Kaohsiung would explode. After arriving at the scene, they emptied out and searched the train, but did not find any dangerous items. The arrested woman, surnamed Peng, has been questioned and is now facing public intimidation charges. It comes amid public safety fears after Friday's mass stabbing in Taipei.
Opposition Kuomintang lawmakers are here at the Taipei District Prosecutor's Office, filing a lawsuit against 5 constitutional justices, calling them not to act as tools for President Lai Ching-te.
Okay, that was an interesting video. Let's check on American videos. Videos about the American economy. President Trump is live, not alive, is live. He's saying something. Another huge victory for Ukraine. China's $10 trillion debt scandal by Joe Blogs. I'll save it to watch later, but it's probably not anything I don't already know about. However, it's different. Hearing things from a different perspective, like in this case, Joe Blogs, is always interesting. Nancy Pelosi caught in a massive insider trading scandal. Interesting. George Floyd Square plan has been approved. Get me out of this bitch. Inflation fear-mongering collapses under strong. That's such a Fox News. Low inflation is not strong growth. Sorry, but it's not. We want inflation. We want wage growth to be high. When wage growth is high, inflation will be high. Ukraine lands a devastating blow in Crimea. Russia loses everything except for Crimea, probably, I'm going to guess. Russian general assassinated. How much will the $11 billion arms package help Taiwan? I might have to prioritize the watching of that one. Homebuilder CEOs issue a massive warning. Got a very interesting map on that thumbnail there, which I think shows the largest home builder in each region of the US. Scams, drugs, and gambling inside the Sin City built by a notorious Chinese gangster. The special economic zone on the banks of the Mekong River has become famed for boundless criminality. Has its luck run out? Everything burns in Donetsk as Ukraine annihilates Russia's assault. Something. Okay. Epstein files. The Department of Justice defends partial release of the documents. The 90 billion euro EU Ukraine loan is a time bomb for European investors. China expert hails Trump's 11 billion sale to Taiwan. Inside the Minneapolis St. Paul airport as the holiday rush begins. Mexico horses around with tariffs. What the fuck? Flu cases in Minnesota spike. It would suck to be on a 17-hour flight while having the flu. So please, don't let it be. All right, that's it. Let's. I'm gonna watch this Binkoff's Battleground.
The Republic of China, also known as Taiwan, has recently made some rounds in the media after the US announced a huge weapons sale last week. A large package of various weapons to be purchased by Taiwan has been valued by the US government as being worth $11.1 billion. This video will go through the items covered by the sale and take a deeper look at each, analyzing how worthwhile each item is to Taiwan in its possible future fight against its neighbor, the People's Republic of China. Salutations! Did you know I made a wall calendar? And it's on sale. 12 months, 12 modern combat aircraft currently in active use. Okay, one is still in testing. This 2026 wall calendar features a nice glossy finish and it isn't too large, 11 by 20 inches wide on your wall. If you like what you see, hop over to my fourth wall store and grab yourself one while you still can. 2026 is upon us. With 25% off, it's just $18 plus shipping. Just follow the link on the screen or click the link below the video. This latest arms package sale is among the biggest ever that US issued to Taiwan. For $11.1 billion, this latest package includes the following: launcher systems, 60 Paladin self-propelled artillery guns with guided ammo, probably close to 1,000 munition networks, some 25 anti-attack helicopter and anti-ship missile repair and support. But let's go over each one in more detail to explain the sheer scope and use cases. The HIMARS package alone is valued at $4 billion. It includes 82 launcher vehicles, 420 ATACMS missiles, and some 7,200 GMLRS missiles. Both ATACMS and GMLRS missiles use GPS and inertial navigation. They can be quite accurate, but only against static targets. So GMLRS' role against a possible Chinese invasion is likely to saturate the region, both on mainland Taiwan, in case China manages to land there, and on nearby Penghu Islands, which would likely be taken first as a stepping stone for later invasion. GMLRS, with its 80-something kilometer reach, could be well suited to set mission. Its long reach means the launchers themselves could be tucked away from the enemy, possibly in the forests of eastern Taiwan, where Chinese Air Force would have a harder time tracking the launchers as they move around in between silos. GMLRS have at times proved susceptible to GPS jamming in Ukraine against Russia, but it has to be noted that their use there is different. They are often fired deep behind enemy lines, so if flying over enemy jammer systems, they would naturally be jammed more effectively. If used against frontline units on Taiwan, like explained, they would likely retain much of their precision. ATACMS with their 300-kilometer range could be used to attack mainland China. More specifically, sort of large, static, and hard to quickly relocate targets such as ports, troop assembly and embarkation points, and so on. Even if Taiwan just pushes Chinese assembly points outside the range, that would still count for something, as it would mean longer transit times for ships to Taiwan. Higher flight trajectory would also make them less jammable than GMLRS inside Ukraine. GMLRS variants include over 750 M31 guided rocket pods with missiles. Those are the unitary variants. And 447 M30 guided rocket pods with missiles. Those feature warheads with 180,000 fragments for air bursts and area damage. The deal also includes various logistics vehicles, trucks, Humvees, 45 field artillery tactical data system terminals, radio systems, test equipment, practice rocket spares, training services, and so on. In 2025, U.S. military was paying something like $8 million per launcher vehicle, while restarted ATACMS production missile initially cost over $3 million each, though it's likely that has come down, so Taiwan is paying less. Still, a total of 7,200 GMLRS probably costs $2 billion or more on its own. Only slightly cheaper, still at $4 billion, is the Paladin artillery package. Those 60 howitzers are U.S. most modern Paladin variants, M109A7. The use case for the howitzers is quite clear. They're to assist the HIMARS with fire on the disembarking Chinese. With 4 rounds fired within a minute before relocation, they can in theory deliver more rounds than HIMARS over time. Their much shorter range, 20 to 40 kilometers, depending on exact round used, means they're more exposed, and the minute of being static and firing could expose them even more, so they're more easily spotted by Chinese assets. If China manages to establish enough control over the airspace, Paladins might prove to be too vulnerable and not as good of a buy as the HIMARS. Taiwan already has some 220 older M109 howitzers, and it is quite likely these will be refurbished into A7s, just like the US Army refurbishes theirs. The US Army started converting theirs a decade ago. They feature a better and faster autoloader, network comms and targeting, and better maneuverability. That said, they still retain the short 39 caliber barrel. Alongside the howitzers, 60 ammo carrier vehicles are included, 13 heavy recovery vehicles, 42 artillery tactical data terminals, various machine guns, spare barrels, radios, GPS receivers, tools, training, and so on, and importantly, ammunition. An undisclosed number of M795 155mm rounds, which are fairly standard, and more interestingly, 4,080 precision guidance kits. Those are special fuses that are to be mated to regular artillery rounds, which contain not only a fuse, but a satellite receiver, a power pack, servo motors, and steering fins. They are basically a JTAM kit equivalent of an artillery round, turning an otherwise dumb round into a precision weapon. Most 155mm rounds fired from the Paladin have a max range of up to 30 kilometers, and max circular error probable of some 270 meters. The precision guidance kit can improve that to just 50 meters. While still much worse than the bespoke design of Excalibur round, which can land within 3 or so meters, the kit is a few times cheaper than the Excalibur. For many soft targets like troops and beachhead or soft-skinned vehicles, 50 meters is still quite lethal. Furthermore, Taiwan is buying $1.1 billion worth of Altius 700M and Altius 600 loitering munitions and drones. Those have infrared seekers and transmit video feeds. The M sub-variants are, in essence, attack drones. Various support items and training are listed, but sadly no numbers on the munitions themselves. Altius 600 is the smaller model, just 6 inches in diameter, credited with 3.5-hour endurance. It carries recon equipment and no warhead. Altius 700M is larger at 7 inches across and carries a 15-kilo warhead. Due to that, its endurance is less, at some 75 minutes. In theory, the 600 has a range of almost 400 kilometers and 700M of 160 kilometers, but that refers to distance travel. Due to radio command and no satellite command, useful range behind enemy lines would be much less due to jamming. Best use case for 700M would be attacking Chinese landing craft approaching the beaches. Modern warfare has shown that cheap and replaceable recon drones are a must. In a way, Altius 600 is perhaps even more important here than the attacking 700M variant, providing enough of them got procured. The 2024 US government notice for an offer to Taiwan estimated that a single Altius 600 costs just over $1 million with support. That's not exactly cheap, as the 700 is not that much different. The 1.1 billion mentioned might be enough for just under 1,000 drones, but there are additional problems with Altius. Their sensor heads have a quite small diameter, which means they likely can't spot targets farther than a few kilometers up, which means they fly low and close to the enemy, where they might get quite exposed. And there have been Wall Street Journal reports from Ukraine where Ukraine stopped using them in 2024, allegedly because Russian jamming proved too much for them. If true, that does not bode well against Chinese jamming, which is likely even more advanced and more widespread. Another item on the list is $1 billion worth of tactical mission network software and equipment with support. That can be very useful in a fight, but without details provided, not much else can be said. On to the ATGMs. 2 separate contracts, one for 1,050 Javelin F ATGMs, and another for 1,545 TOW-2Bs, were also issued. The Javelins also come with 70 launcher units, while the TOWs come with 24 improved targeting systems. Some additional test missiles are also included. 2B variant TOWs that Taiwan is getting are top-down attack variants, commanded by radio. They fly straight, but just over the target, before directing their blast downwards. Javelin F is the most modern Javelin variant with a multi-purpose use warhead. Javelins are famously fire and forget, used by soldiers without a tripod, and with a decent range. Both systems could be lethal against any sort of vehicles China might disembark, but the hit is far from guaranteed. Infrared smoke screens could mess up targeting. TOW could be jammed, and both systems might be shut down by active protection systems, which are slowly starting to be used by Chinese armored vehicles. Still, modern ATGMs are an absolute necessity if a landing is to be contested. Besides vehicles, various landing boats and craft could also be met while still at sea. The Javelin is certainly the more useful system here, mostly because of its portability and guidance, which means its operators would be less exposed to the enemy. If anything, the biggest issue here is the relatively low number of missiles procured. In reality, order of magnitude more missiles are needed. Taiwan already has some missiles from before, and more are likely to be procured as well. Cobra attack helicopter spares and repair services are valued at $96 million. Taiwan has approximately 60 AH-1W models, which are certainly old enough to require additional support. And not much else to be said here. Attack helicopters are important for defense against the landing force, as they can react quickly, can cover hundreds of kilometers, provide precision firepower, and don't require airstrips, which would be spotted and generally neutralized by China. Still, Chinese air power and air defenses might prove to be quite a match. It remains to be seen. The final piece of the arms package is $91 million worth of support for existing Harpoon anti-ship missile inventory. Those will provide better radar seekers, among other refurbished parts. Harpoon is a medium-sized anti-ship missile which could be used to hit ships all over 100 kilometers away, covering a wide range of Chinese targets. Taiwan recently started receiving 100 truck launchers and 400 newly built Harpoon missiles, which is a huge deal, but those were bought back in the different 2020 deal. That said, it's an old design, a subsonic missile that's neither stealthy nor very maneuverable. Against today's defenses, it's getting a bit obsolete. Taiwan has a vast inventory of various Harpoon variants to upkeep, as the order. And those variants, ship-launched, air-launched, and sub-launched, may have issues getting launched in the first place if Chinese assets neutralize their launch platforms first. Coastal Harpoon launchers are more survivable, but again, they were bought under that previous contract. And there you have it. Of course, this order is going to take several years to materialize, and is just a part of what Taiwan is going to get over time. Recently, Taiwan announced a $40 billion special fund for additional defenses over the usual defense budget. The $40 billion will be distributed from 2026 to 2033, likely covering many of the purchases mentioned here, but also a lot of other future items, like the so-called TIDO, the Future Air Defense System Network. Taiwan is certainly investing a lot in its defense as of the last few years. This latest arms package is huge, but it is ultimately not going to change its military capability by a lot, and given the sheer size of Chinese forces opposing it, it may not be enough. And remember, Minkov may talk about war, but only real peace can bring us all together.
Hi, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about what's happening in the Chinese economy, and specifically to talk about what's going on with the local governments and the local government debt. Now, if you follow the channel, you'll know that I've made a number of videos talking about the LGFVs, which are the local government financing vehicles, because historically, local governments were not allowed to borrow any money. The Chinese authorities didn't want all the local authorities building up huge amounts of debt, getting themselves into difficulty, and then having to bail them out. But to get around that issue, local governments set up what are called local government financing vehicles. So basically, they set up a separate company that was allowed to borrow debt. So these LGFVs have been used to raise lots of money. Now, historically, the local governments were making an absolute fortune from selling land, because China is a very big country. They've got lots of land. And as you'll know, the property development boom that took place in the early part of the 2000s and went on for around 20 years, it was a license to print money. So every single month, the local governments would hold an auction. They would sell parcels of land to all of the big developers. And every single month, the price of that land would go up, and that would fund all of the spending from the local government. So happy days for everybody involved in property and local governments. However, as you'll also be aware if you follow the channel, for the past few years, the property sector has been in the toilet in China, because nobody wants to buy property anymore. We have seen a huge fall in property prices. We've seen lots of property development companies, such as Evergrande, going bust. And what that's meant for the local governments is that they've no longer been able to make lots of money from selling land at auctions each month. So instead, they've been borrowing more and more cash to keep funding all of their spending. And one of the things that's just come to light is that the local governments have been following a practice that's actually been outlawed in China, whereby they're not allowed to issue bonds above a certain price. So to get around that, they've been following a very interesting practice. So let's walk through this example as to what the Chinese local authorities have been doing to boost the price that's paid to investors to make the bonds more attractive, because as they've taken on more and more debt, the risk is now getting higher. So they should actually just be paying a really high coupon, but they're not allowed to. And just before we go any further today, could I ask anybody that hasn't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. And I wanted to tell you about a competition I'm running whereby you could win my house, which is located a stone's throw from one of the most beautiful beaches in the southwest of England. This is an idyllic place to hang out, to go on holiday, or even to live rent-free, mortgage-free for the rest of your life. But if that doesn't interest you, if you don't mind going for walks on the beach, having some fish and chips or a pint and just taking in the lovely fresh sea air, then there's a great alternative, because I'm offering you £250,000 in cold hard cash in any currency that you like. But you have to buy a ticket, and they're priced at £5. So this is another way of supporting the channel. If you'd like to support me and see more of these sorts of videos, then please buy a ticket. You can see the QR code on the screen now. You can scan that, or there's a link in the description below. If we take an example of a bond that's issued in Chinese yuan, now the face value of that bond would be 100 Chinese yuan. So if you bought the bond when it was issued by the local authority, you pay them 100 yuan. You then get paid the interest during the 12 months that the bond is in issuance, and at the end of the year, you'll get your 100 yuan back. So basically, you just make your profit by getting paid the interest. But in order to pay an attractive rate, the local authorities have been doing this. So rather than issuing the bond at 100 yuan, they've actually been giving it to a broker, and the brokers have been selling them in the market for 93 yuan on the 100. So basically, you're getting a 7% discount for buying that 100 yuan bond. So what that means is that at the end of the 12 months, when you come to get repaid, you'll get repaid the 100 yuan, which is on the front face of the bond, but you only paid 93 for it. So therefore, you're making a 7% uplift on the capital, in addition to the coupon on that bond, which in this example has been set at 8%. So over the course of 12 months, rather than just getting paid 8% interest, which is what you would get if you bought it at 100, you're getting the additional 7% kicker from the uplift against the original price of 93 that you paid. So in total, you're receiving 15 yuan for a bond that you only paid 93 yuan for. So you're basically getting a return of above 16%. Now, that wouldn't be allowed. The local authorities wouldn't be allowed to issue bonds at 16%, but this is a very clever way of getting around it. But what this means from the local authorities' point of view is that they're actually building up more debt for themselves because they're issuing these bonds at a discount to the broker at 93 yuan. They're only receiving 93 yuan at the start of the year, and at the end of the year, they're having to pay back 100 yuan. So they're paying 8% interest on the bond plus another 7% uplift on the discount that they paid at the beginning of the year. So these bonds are costing the local authorities 16%. Now, obviously, if they don't have the cash to cover that, they don't have to pay it by issuing more bonds. So this is a classic debt spiral that these local authorities have got themselves into. If you have a look at this example, it shows how these bonds are trading. These are real-world examples. So we've got an official rate here of 6.5% for these bonds that have been issued. But when they've been sold in the secondary market by investors, the yield on those bonds is coming in this example here, it's coming in at 14.6%. So that's basically the actual value that these bonds have in the market. You can see that there's a whole range of different rates here, ranging from the 14.6% down to 9.4%. So what this tells us is that the real price of these bonds for the Chinese local authorities is significantly higher than the face value of the bonds because they're issuing them at a discount. And it's now estimated that the total debt that's been built up by the local government financing vehicles is over 10 trillion US dollar equivalent. Now, when that's added to the total debt for the Chinese state, it increases the debt to GDP percentage from around about 40% to closer to 100%. So the figures that we're seeing officially being published by the Chinese state do not reflect the risk that's out there in the market at the moment in terms of the amount of debt that's been built up at local authority level in China. And the problem that the local authorities have is that their main source of income, which historically was coming from the property market, has been taken away because the property market is no longer functioning in China. Nobody wants to buy large parcels of land to build new cities on because all the previous cities that have been built are still half built and half empty. So the property developers don't have the capital, therefore local authorities aren't receiving the cash. What this tells us is that China is now struggling with a debt crisis right across the country.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
So what's the summary and conclusion today? Well, I want to post this video because we've been talking about the Chinese economy for many years now. We've been talking about a build-up of debt for a long time, but that debt was specific to lots of individual companies. So we started off talking about Evergrande, next to the first videos that I made on China. Since that time, we've been identifying lots of other problem industries. So it's not just property where they're swimming in debt. We've got lots of companies now in China that are no longer making a profit or banking losses. And the only way to fund a loss as a company is either from your cash reserves, but Chinese companies don't have large cash reserves because they've seen falling producer prices in every single month for the last 36 months. So they're selling their products at a lower and lower price every single year, but costs are rising, and that's been wiping out profit for most companies. So over 50% are banking those losses, and that means that those 50% are borrowing money. So they're building up more and more debt, and where they're borrowing that from is the Chinese banks. So we've got a really big risk profile that's starting to emerge all across China from all of these different companies. But what we talked about in today's video isn't company debt. This isn't down to losing profitability because you've had to cut your profits as a result of falling prices. This is actual infrastructure. We're talking about the local governments in China not receiving enough money either from the state or from their own resources to cover their costs. As we identified earlier, historically, the local governments were making lots of cash from selling parcels of land to the property developers. But unfortunately, that merry-go-round has now stopped because the property developers couldn't get access to the debt that they needed to pay for that land, and so they couldn't cover the cost for any future purchases. And at the same time, those developers then found that they couldn't actually build out all of the apartments that they'd taken deposits and advance payments for. And so we had a collapse of those businesses. And alongside that, there was a collapse in confidence from Chinese consumers because they started to see, firstly, the value of property go down, and secondly, a lot of their investments were lost because they put down their life savings to buy these apartments. In many cases, people were buying multiple apartments in the same building. Unfortunately, a lot of those apartments still haven't been built. So the property sector has been wiped out over the past few years, and the local governments are now suffering badly as a result of this because they've lost their primary source of revenue that was funding all of their growth and development. And they're now having to find other ways to fund it. And how they're doing that is by issuing more and more debt. Now, there are strict rules in China in terms of what they're allowed to do with the coupon on that debt. So they can't offer a 16% coupon because questions would be asked from the top as to what's going on in your local authority. So to get around that, what the local authorities have been doing is issuing their bonds at a discount. So they've been talking to brokers, placing those bonds at maybe 7% below the face value in the primary market. Those brokers have then been selling that to investors. Those investors have then either been sitting back and taking a very healthy coupon of maybe 8% interest plus a 7% discount, giving them a total return of over 16% because they've only paid 93 yuan on 100 at the front end of that deal. Or they've been selling those bonds immediately into the secondary market and making a nice profit. And those bonds are now trading in the secondary at double-digit return. So the yield tells us that the local authorities are having to pay a really high price to continue borrowing. And the reason why they're having to pay that price is because the risk profile is rising as you take on more and more debt. And as your income starts to fall, as it has been as a result of the loss of the property income, then that means that you're going to make big losses. Local authorities in China are spending more than they're earning. And as you'll know if you follow the channel, that is not a sustainable situation because the only way that they've been funding it is through debt, but it becomes a vicious debt spiral because the more debt you borrow, the more interest you have to pay and the more discounts you're offering on those bonds. Therefore, you have to borrow even more to cover all of those costs. And before you know it, you become bankrupt. Now, obviously, if you're a local authority, you can't be made bankrupt in China. That's one of the reasons why they're not allowed to take on debt. But the local government financing vehicles are allowed to take on debt. They've taken on over $10 trillion worth of debt collectively, and they can't afford to pay it back. But of course, the people who've given them that debt are the investors in China, both funds and individuals. A situation where there are some major losses that are now being built up in China. And at some point, there will have to be a reckoning. There's going to be a day when all of this debt needs to be paid back. But of course, local authorities, they can't pay it back. They don't have any money. The only way that they can continue paying back investors is by issuing more and more bonds. So they're getting themselves into deeper and deeper trouble at the same time as the rest of the Chinese economy is also struggling. We've got lots of companies making losses. And we've got a big problem with regards to the property sector. And now we've got an issue with regards to exports as a result of the tariffs that have been applied both in the USA and in lots of other countries over the past 12 months. So China is facing a major problem. It's got falling revenue and rising debt costs. And at some point, that is going to catch up with the Chinese economy. And we could see a major implosion at some point over the next 12 to 18 months. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. You found it useful, informative, and hopefully thought-provoking. If you've liked what I said, then please give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching this video all the way through to the end. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And thanks so much to everyone that supported me. You bought me a coffee, or sent me YouTube Superplex, or signed up as a Patreon, YouTube member, or Buy Me a Coffee member. Thank you for that support. Really helps keep me going. Here's something to put a smile on your face.
Russia didn't just invade Ukraine, it sold the world a lie and marched to war behind it. Denazification, protecting Russian speakers, pushing back against NATO.
Got my ass beat again. Let's see whether or not I can get a free cigarette. Hey, Mossad, any chance you got a cigarette for me? That sounded like a yes. Was it a yes? You sound like you need to be Narcan, homie. Can I open the door? Are you actually sleeping? You waiting to get to work? Aren't you saying you never sleep so much you start confusing real life and dreams? I'm just appreciating what you have contributed to the universe, sir. All right, I'm gonna go out and smoke a cigarette, and I'm gonna end this live stream, and then I'm gonna come back on my other channel. I'm gonna switch to the other channel, and then I'm going to go through my subs on that channel. Because why not? I actually think that's a good idea. I should start doing that all like on a daily basis. not only put out a playlist, but show the creation of the playlist and spend a little bit of time commenting on why I chose to save or not save a particular video to the playlist. And then watch them and stop and pause and comment on the videos while I watch them. I think that's a great idea. I can't believe I didn't do that before.